Okay, now in this video, we're looking at what we call extended chords. And extended chords is when you've got more than the 3 regular notes in your chord. If you start bringing 4th or 5th or 6th notes into your chord, okay, there's no limit to the amount of notes you can have in a chord. Well, the only limit is the amount of different notes we've got. Okay, so if you had a 4th note in your chord, or a 5th note, or a 6th note in your chord, we have got what we call extended chords. And when we finally get back to doing composition work in school, extended chords are a great way to get extra marks for your composition. If instead of having a C major chord, you can have an extended C chord. We're going to talk about what extended chords exactly are in a second. If you can have extended C chords or extended chords in your composition, it'll make your piece sound a lot better, more interesting and more impressive. It'll also get you more marks. Okay, so that's a thing to think about once we get back to school. Now, an extended chord, like I said, is having more than 3 notes in your chord. And a common one, I'm sure you all have heard of before, is what we call a 7th chord. Now, a 7th chord, I showed you an example of one right at the end of that last video. If I've got an E minor chord, I've got E, G, B, there's my E minor chord. Often looks like that. Okay, if I add this note here, D natural, D natural is a 7th away from E. So if that's my E, I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I've got what we call an E7 chord, or in this case an E minor 7, because I've got a 7th above it. I'm sure you've all heard of 7th chords. They use them in blues quite a lot, they use them in jazz quite a lot. Jazz music uses extended chords all the time, as does the Romantic era of classical music. Okay, so they do come up. You will have heard them, you will need to know about them in case they come up in the exam as well. Okay, so we've got 7th chords. Now 7th chords, in this case, it's an E minor 7th. That 7th is a minor 7th, or it's even sometimes called a dominant 7th as well. But I could get a major 7th chord. Okay, I could get, this is a bit weird sounding, okay, an E minor, a major 7th. And that would be my normal E minor chord, B, G, and B. Okay. Now this is where we get back into intervals again. So if you're still unsure on that intervals video, you really need to pay attention to it, you really need to watch through it, and you need to email me if you've got any questions about it. Now that is a minor 7th, or dominant 7th. If I was to make it a D sharp, because of the distance from the E note, okay, it's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tones and a semitone away from E. It's literally as far away as you can get from it. Okay, that is our major 7th. Okay, so a dominant 7th or a minor 7th is 5 tones away from root note. A major 7th is 5 tones plus 1 semitone from the root note. Okay, that's the difference between minor 7th or dominant 7ths and major 7th. I'm just going to put. Okay, they can be called either one. Okay, dominant 7th or minor 7th, it doesn't matter at the moment. Okay, that's the difference in 2 types of 7th chords. Now we get more than just 7th chords, so this is where it starts to get a little bit complicated. Okay, actually let's stick with 7th chords for now. I'm going to draw out some chords and I want you to tell me if they are major 7th or dominant 7th chords. The chord could be inverted in different versions. It could be in root position. It might not be. Okay, so you need to tell me not what position it's in, just is it a major 7th chord or a minor 7th chord. I don't even need to know the whole chord, just is that interval a major 7th or a minor 7th away. So let's start with a relatively easy one. Work out the notes to tell you what the chord is. And then once you know the chord, you can work out which note is the 7th, and you can work out if it's a major 7th or a minor 7th. There's your first one. Is that major 7th or minor 7th or dominant 7th? Let's try another one. Let's try and again keep things a little bit simple. Again, work out the notes that make up this chord. Work out which is the root note, work out which is the third, which is the 5th, and then work out which is the 7th. Is it a dominant 7th or is it a major 7th? Let's just do a couple more. Okay, one more. A more complex one for your last one. Okay, so what is the chord? What notes are in that chord? Work out which is the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and then the 7th, and work out is that 7th a dominant 7th, otherwise known as a minor 7th, or is it a major 7th? Okay, that's your first task for those 4 chords. I realised I never said to pause the video and do that task, so if you didn't pause it, take it back a few seconds, pause the video and do that task before we start again. So we're now looking at extended chords still, and we've looked at 7th chords. We can get more than just a 7th chord. So if you're a guitarist, some of you in the room, you will have played things like sus2 chords or sus4 chords, which is having a chord with a 2nd in there or a 4th in there. Okay, we can also get things like 9th chords, 11th chords, and 13th chords, and you don't really go beyond 13th chords. Okay, and this is where knowing your different scales and knowing your key signatures, okay, key signatures we've done already, knowing those really is beneficial here. Okay, so let's take C first of all. I'm going to draw out my C scale, my C major scale. And I'm going to go beyond the octave. Okay, so I've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, that's my octave. Fingers up again, D, E, F, G, A, B. Now, that's the first note in our scale. This is our root note. I then got my second note, my 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. In fact, I'm going to write them close to the actual note because it will make it easier to see. So, here's my root, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, that's the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th. Okay, and that is B, and after that, it just becomes C again. Okay, which you can't even see. So, in standard chord, major chord, we talked about how the chord is made up of the root, the third, and the fifth. In this case, we're in a major scale, so it's using the major third. Okay, so the root, third, and the fifth. And we just talked about sevenths, so I can add in the seventh. So in this case, my chord is made up of C, E, G, and B, and I've got a major seventh chord. But I can also add in a ninth. So if I played those 5 notes together, okay, it would make a C9 chord, and you could have it written out as just C9. Okay, if I added in the 11th note, okay, and I added in that note there, which is F, and if I played these 6 notes together, I'd have what we call a C11 chord. Okay, I can even have, like I said, a 13th chord. Okay, and I can have that note there, which would be A, and I get what we call a C13 right above. Okay, and the chord C13 is when all these notes are played together. You don't really get things like 12th chords or 10th chords or 8th chords, and the reason is, okay, if I take that out, 8 is just C again. Okay, so we've already got that. That's our root note. 10, you might be able to see where this is going. 10 is just E, which we've already got. Okay, so again, it's not adding anything new to our chord. 12 is G, so it's not really adding anything new. Okay, 14 would be another B. Again, we've already got it, it's not adding anything new. And 15, well, if 14 was B, 15 is C. And just gets us back to the start again. Okay, so we don't really get anything beyond a 13 chord. Okay, so we have got, this is far more complex than just sevenths. Okay, ninths, 11ths, and 13ths. 9 chords, 11 chords, 13 chords. When you have your triad, your 3 main notes in your chord, your 7th, okay, and then your 9th, or your 11th, or your 13th in there as well, okay, and that would give you, in this case, a 13th chord. If I take that away, an 11th chord. If I take that away, it gives me a 9th chord. Okay, but like I said, this is a bit more complex. If, when we go back to doing composition stuff, you wanted to start trying to include things like 9th chord or 11th chord or 13th chords in your composition, that would be brilliant. If you've already got a chord pattern of just, say, simple chord pattern of C, simple chord pattern of C major, G major, A minor, F. Well, I can make it infinitely more interesting at the moment now by making that C9. I can have a G11, I can have an A minor 7th, and I can have an F13. It might not sound great because I've just picked those at random, okay, but you'd have to experiment with the chords and see do they sound good. And that would show me and the examiner that you're doing much more than just a simple 4-chord trick of C, G, A minor, and F, but you're thinking about extended chords. You're making your harmony much more interesting. Okay, you don't have to. If you like the 4-chord trick, you can stick with that. But adding in extended chords will get you a few more marks. They don't always sound great. You can't just pick them at random like I did. Like if I had C7, G7, A minor 7, and F7, it's not going to sound nice at all. Okay, and the reason is because we need somewhere that feels like home in a piece of music. We need a root chord or a root note. If you're doing it in C major, in the key of C major, C is going to be your root. You rarely, in the key of C, will have C7, okay? Because C7 does not sound finished it sounds like it wants to resolve and go somewhere else. Okay, you will, in the key of C major, quite often get a G7 chord. Okay, now remember G is the 5th note in the key of C major, and that's the same with whatever key you're in. The 5th note, okay, the 5th note, the 5th chord, will quite often have a 7th above it. Okay, so let's say, for example, forget all of this, I'm just going to draw a line going up like that. Okay, it's not a straight bar line, but it's just to separate that from this. Let's say I had E, not protect X, I'm going to run out of room, which is not good. So let's do instead D, F, sharp, A, and C. Well, I know that there, that's a D7. I know that that's a C, the top note, the 7th there, so I know that that is a dominant 7th. It's not a major 7th. Okay, it's not that, because although it's a major chord, it's not a major 7th. So it is just D7. Okay, and I know that D7, or D, is the 5th note in the chord of G. So if I'm writing in the key of G, I can have quite often a D7 chord and it will sound really nice, because the D7 will want to resolve and go back to G quite often. Okay, I could have in there also, so let's say I have my first chord as G, I could have a C chord, I could have a D7, and I could have a final G, and that could be my chord pattern. Now I might want to make it more interesting and do a C9 there, I might want to do a G11, okay, and that might make it sound nice, okay, but it's all about experimenting with the extended chords. Now I'm not asking you to work out every single 11th chord, 7th chord, 9th chord, 13th chord there is. It is a useful skill to be able to work out from written music what the chord is, what the notes in it are, how those notes relate to each other, okay, because that could come up in the exam. They might have a section where they say identify this chord, okay, and they might just give you this, 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 okay, and they might do a chord which looks something like that, okay, and they might say, what's this chord, what position is it in, and you would have to work out, right, well it's got the note D, it's got F, it's got G, it's got B flat. I need to work out what chord that is based on those notes, okay, and me, having done music for decades, I know what chord that is instantly, but it's going to take practice for you guys to work out how these different notes relate to each other. So which one is the root, which is the 3rd, which is the 5th, which is the 7th. And as soon as you know what it is, okay, you know what that chord is, okay, and I know that's also in 2nd inversion, because the perfect 5th, D, is in the bass. Okay. Now I've gone off on a wild tangent here about extended chords and 9th, 11th and 13th. I'm not going to give you any tasks to do on 9th, 11th and 13th because, like I said, it's very, very advanced in terms of music theory. Okay, it relates a lot to jazz music and some of the Romantic era classical pieces. Okay, it could come up, it's unlikely, you're unlikely to get anything more than a 7th chord, but like I said, if you want to use extended chords for your composition work, that would be great. I'm going to add in another video, which is not done by me, it's one I found on YouTube about extended chords. It's about 20 minutes long, so if this has been of some interest and you want a bit more detail into it, okay, then watch that video. If this has been really confusing, 9th, 11th and 13th chords, don't worry about watching the video. Okay, but watch through the 3 videos that I've made in the order I've made them if you can, and do all the tasks in those first 2 videos, and then email me if you've got any questions, if you've got any issues, and I'll see you next week.